Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat, head pulled down over your eyes. Every part of you wants to surrender, but darling, you were meant to survive. With every start, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head. With every start, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head.
Hello, and welcome to the Authentic Self Love Summit, where our expert speakers will remind you how to love yourself fully by sharing practices that will help you embody acceptance, love, and forgiveness so that you can unlock your confidence, go after your dreams, and be authentically you. Our speaker today is Joe Nunziata. He is a best-selling author, business consultant, professional speaker, and life coach. He has been delivering his life-changing messages at events and seminars since 1992. His enlightened programs are a unique blend of spirituality, psychology, physiology, and the power of internal energy. Joe teaches that to make permanent changes, you must clear your negative energy and break destructive patterns of behavior at the core level. This transformational process creates new energy and beliefs designed to help you achieve sustained positive growth in all areas of your life. He has appeared on many television and radio programs, including Good Day New York and Street Talk on Fox TV, Gaiman TV, Cablevision News 12, Better TV, the Braveheart Network, and various radio stations across the country. His books include Heal the Deal, Chasing Your Life, Karma Buster, Spiritual Selling, Finding Your Purpose, and No More 9 to 5. Other programs include Change Your Energy, Change Your Life, No More Mental Barriers, Connecting to Your Spirit, and the 7 Keys to Transformation. Joe, could you share with us what started you on your healing journey and how you got from where you were to where you are now?
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. I'm excited to be here, Cornelia. Really looking forward to it. My journey was not, I guess, not that any of us have a normal journey, but this was certainly not something I ever thought I would be doing. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. So I grew up, middle class. My dad was a cop. He passed on the job when I was 12. I went to work early, 18 years old, right after high school. And, I was the oldest in my family. We had some financial issues. So I was, feeling very pressured and responsible. My mindset was, work hard, go out there, you'll be successful, very aggressive, very entrepreneurial, very much wanting to succeed. Long story short, I kind of followed that model for a long time. It ended up going through 2 bankruptcies by the time I was 30 years old. And I was just kind of flustered because I said, I've done everything. I don't know what to do. I was working hard. I was reading books. I was writing goals. I was doing all these things, just couldn't get it together. And in my late 20s, but I was always a seeker. So I was always reading about, personal development and improvement. And in my late 20s, I ended up going to therapy, which was not something Italians from Brooklyn did, especially back in my family. So I started out doing that, really didn't know what else to do. I was kind of frustrated. And I really just became enamored with therapy. I started to really study then human behavior, read a ton of books on, all different methods of therapy, growth, took some courses, and really became very involved in behavioral studies. That led me into energy work. Then I started learning more about metaphysical principles and energy principles, and ended up meeting along the journey, as we do, a couple of people. One very amazing teacher who taught me the chakra system, And she's the one who told me I had blocked chakras, and I didn't know what that was, and it made me very nervous, but I wasn't sure about what that meant. And taught me how your energy field works and how to identify blocks and clear them. And so I started doing it obviously on myself. People started asking me. I really didn't intend to teach it. People started just asking me, like, you seem different. What's going on? What are you doing? And I started sharing this with others. And that's kind of where it went. So I was already at that time more or less known as a business coach and consultant and sales trainer. And I started to infuse a lot of these principles into that work as well. So I actually do both. I still do a lot of business coaching and consulting, but I also do individual work with people on clearing negative energy and programs and courses on that. So it was sort of a crooked road, but it got me here so far. So certainly not, like I said, it was not something I expected to do, but I'm glad I did.
Wow, that's an amazing journey that you had there. I know with energy healing that I've done energy healing as well. And when I first started, it's like, oh, you had so many blocks. I was like, oh no, that doesn't sound good to have all these blocks. And now it's just every other, like not every other day, but you have blocks every now and again. If you don't take care of yourself the way you probably should, then you might end up developing a block again. Is there anything that you can talk to us about like maybe the chakra system and identifying like blockages that we might encounter in our everyday lives?
Yes, that's a great question. So basically, I think one of the things we have to understand that as long as we're humans and in human form, we will have blocks, or I don't even think about, they're more like issues. They're things that we're supposed to work on here in this lifetime. So the idea really is not to think, well, oh, this is not like A to B, A to Z, finish the program, you never have another block. That's not the way it works. Because in human life, things are going to happen. People die, people get sick, we have, things happen, right? That's part of life. So the idea really is to understand that you will always have certain issues. And really that's why we're here. As long as we're here, we're always going to be elevating to another level. The idea for me was to learn to say, okay, how do I get through these things quickly and let it go, as opposed to what I used to do, because I didn't know what I was doing, which most people don't, holding on to it, recycling that old energy, repeating the same pattern over and over again, which is what most people do. So the idea behind the chakra system is you're holding energy in your chakras. That energy is creating vibration. That energy is going out into the universe, and then you're creating your life based on that vibration of energy, which is, of course, the premise for law of attraction. And law of attraction is not just about getting cars and putting pictures on your refrigerator of nice houses. That's fine, but it really is working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you have this vibration of energy. So if you realize that, wow, I keep attracting the same type of person, I'm having a struggle like I was in my business career, you have to realize there's something going on internally that is not letting that happen. It has nothing to do with the physical world. And our society has always been focused on attack the external and not the internal. And that's really the biggest shift. That was the biggest shift for me, was the minute something happens now, my first thought is, wow, okay, how do I feel? Why did I bring that into my life? What is that representing? How do I move past it and understanding what it is? And I think that really is the issue for people. They don't know, and it's not their fault, because I certainly didn't know how to do it either, but they don't know how to process emotion. And a lot of people don't even know what they're feeling. And I certainly was one of those as well. So that's really the first step for people, is to say, okay, I need to stop and say, what's happening in my life? And most people, that you encounter are victims. They want to say, look what's happening. I can't get a break. Nobody treats me correctly, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. So as long as you stay in that energy, you're stuck. You're going to keep cycling around and around. The idea is to say, okay, what is the feeling that I'm not dealing with here? And being able to identify that, which takes time, and, as you would imagine, some practice.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it can be very difficult too, doing that, because sometimes you just don't want to deal with it. You just want to work. You just want to drink alcohol. You just want to just not deal with it. Right. So, and by not dealing with it, you have just internalized it, and then you're recycling it again for another situation down the road. So could you be able to explain to our viewers what chakras are, in case they're not aware of that term? So
chakra, the word chakra it's spelled with a C, C-H-A-K-R-A. is a Sanskrit, it's an ancient Indian word that means wheel. So what we have, chakras are energy points in your body that basically run from the base of your spine to the crown of your head. Now, there are other chakras, there are front, back, going very deep into it, which I don't want to do now, because then it gets into another whole thing. But the basic chakra system is going from the base of your spine to the crown of your head. And your chakras develop as the minute you're conceived, you start to develop your base or root chakra, which is at the base of your spine. And then each year you keep developing additional chakras up to the crown of your head. There are actually 7 that people know about. I learned an 8th one as well, which is called the moon center, which is in your nose and mouth area. So you grow up, you have karma, obviously, you grow up in a certain environment, you have parents, you have DNA, you have all these different things. And as you grow up, you develop the emotional system, which is really what the chakras are tied to, your emotions and your feelings. So that energy, that map is pretty much written by the time you're about 8, 9 years old. And that energy is what propels your life forward. So whatever's happening in your life, good, bad, or indifferent, is based on the energy that you're holding on to. We have certain positives, we have certain issues that we came to work on and resolve, and we hold it in different points of our body. Obviously, all the chakras work together. I think of them like gears, like they all work together, but we will hold certain issues in different chakras. It could be the heart chakra or the throat chakra or the solar plexus in your stomach. So that's why as you get more tuned in, you'll be able to say, wow, I feel it. Now, when I release energy, I feel where it's coming out of. I actually feel it leaving that part of my body. And that's kind of a more advanced way to do it. But in the beginning, it's really just learning to process the feelings. So every time you deal with the emotion, you let some of that negative energy out of your system. And that creates a different vibration, which then begins to attract different things into your life and different circumstances. Plus, you feel better as far as when you're not holding, think about it, when you're upset, we've all been upset. And when you're holding that energy, it affects your physical body, obviously, as well. And holding on to a lot of anger or a lot of negativity creates other issues within your physical body. So this is all working together. It's, mind, body, spirit type of thing. But if you're holding negative energy, it's going to impact you across the board. Plus, you're going to send out negative energy and then attract negativity into yourself. So you want to clean, in effect, you want to clean it out. So your vibration is clear and pure. So you're bringing in positive things. And you also will feel much more vital in your physical self. I've helped a lot of people heal physically from issues because they were holding on to negative energy. And once we cleared it out, they were able to become more healthy going forward, lose weight, whatever it is that they wanted to do.
Yeah, it's amazing what we can store in our body, because I know I've stored a lot of anger, maybe some anger, but anxiety and worry in my right abdominal area, and it was so tight. And released that, it was like, wow, I didn't realize there was muscles there.
You didn't realize what was hanging around in there.
So yeah, you mentioned something about releasing feelings and emotions, and I know one way that I do that is by crying, but I know that for other people it's very difficult to release their emotions through tears, because what we have been taught about crying and not crying in front of people, and the weak are the ones that cry and all that kind of stuff. Is there anything else that we can do to release these feelings and emotions that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously crying is fantastic, and I've done a lot of crying, clearing out myself. But for a person who never cried until I started doing this a lot, but I think really the key to it is taking away, first of all, whatever connotation or attachment you have to crying. For guys, it's worse. For men, because we were taught that you're not supposed to do that. Especially my generation, baby boomers, we were not supposed to be crying. That was not something we were supposed to do. So the idea behind it really is to feel the emotion. It doesn't matter. You don't have to cry. You could. A lot of times you will if you really feel it. But the idea is, because a lot of people cry and don't feel anything. So just because you're crying doesn't mean you're feeling something. There's a lot of people that you meet, I call them, they're very dramatic, but they're not actually feeling anything. They're not really feeling emotion. They're not really feeling the energy. So they're just crying because it's just kind of a dramatic thing, as opposed to a true, like what we call a God cry, when wow, I really got in there. I felt that one deep, deep in my soul. So the first thing really is to just allow, and I use that word all the time with people, allow yourself to feel what you're feeling with no judgment. So
Mhm.
that means if somebody made you angry or upset, or you have negative feelings towards something or someone, whatever you're feeling in that pure space, that's the feeling you want to allow yourself to feel. When you don't let yourself feel it, or you say, oh, I shouldn't feel that way, or that's not right, that's when you block yourself. So the first rule is really to allow yourself to feel what you feel all the time, and don't block the feeling and don't judge the feeling. So that the minute you do that, if you do that throughout the day, you're actually letting energy go all day. But it's again, it takes practice to get there, because most of us were conditioned to not feel what we feel, or deny our feelings, or be guilty, or whatever the case, or feel shame. These are all things that we learned, and we stopped ourselves from saying, hey, that's how I really feel, and
Mhm.
that's it. It's not good or bad. It's just how I feel. So that's an important piece of the puzzle for people going forward, is just allow yourself to feel what you feel.
Mhm. Because I know the other part of that, and that's what kind of still scares me, is sometimes I get angry and whatnot, and I'm just have to take a step back and meditate on it. But sometimes I get so angry at work that
Yeah.
and I know when I get so angry, I can't stop the tears anymore. Like I've been to the point where it just flows. So then I have to get out of there, because I work with mostly men,
Mhm.
and I don't want to be seen as, oh, she's the female that's always crying.
Right.
But
So
like,
funny.
how can we move, even if we have to like release our feelings, how can we like move from like doing it in front of like coworkers and family members or whatever? Is there like a way we can be like, instead of just like disappearing all the time, for not all the time, but disappearing for that? Is there anything, a way that you would recommend?
Well, what I would do, sometimes, like I said, I'm in the same situation. I'm speaking, or I'm working, or I'm in a client, or something upsets me. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, I can't really process this right now. It's just not an appropriate time, or maybe I'm with family, or maybe whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So later on, what I would do is later I would go process that feeling later on.
Okay.
But I wouldn't just leave it alone. I think that's what people do. They kind of get past the moment, or they hold it in, and
Mhm.
then they go through what I call their routine. So I always ask people when I'm working with them, like, what do you do when you're stressed? What is your go-to? Is it shopping? Is it cleaning? Is it, drinking? Is it drugs? Is it smoke? Like, what is it that you do?
Mhm.
And I'm not talking about, hey, listen, we all need a break and you can have a drink once in a while, or a glass of wine. That's not what we're talking about.
Mhm.
We're talking about, what are you doing to avoid your feelings? That's really what you want to look at. So instead of going into that behavior, what you want to do is later in the day, like if you had a bad day at work or something happened, is you want to learn to process that feeling
Mhm.
that you had at that moment. And you can bring yourself back there. And that's one of the processes that I show people in the beginning. That's kind of my early, I call it a daily clearing exercise, to work on your emotion every day. And because that's kind of like keeping the pipes cleaned out, right? I'm not letting things build up. Like I'm not letting sludge build up in the pipes. I'm going to clear it out right away. So that's really how we like to do it. And if something upsets you during the day, the idea is to kind of make a mental note of it and say, I knew that bothered me. I need to go address that later on when I have quiet time and I can sit with myself and work it through.
Mhm. Well, that does make sense, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm so angry, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
this is so useful to be so angry right
Yeah, I can't do
now.
it here. Not a good idea.
Like, can't just disappear all the time.
Right.
They'll start
Exactly.
tripping. Yeah. So, can you speak to the audience on what to do when they face fear?
Well, I think fear also is something that gets a bad rap, because people always tell us don't be afraid, but fear is something that we use as a mechanism to be safe, right? We know, hey, don't go down the dark alley. I'm from New York, and originally I'm in California now, but been out here for about 10 years. But I grew up my whole life in New York City. And it would always amaze me. I'd be watching the news, and every couple of weeks, or every 2 or 3 weeks, there'd be someone who was running at night through Central Park and got mugged or beat up or raped or whatever. And I'm saying, like,
Mhm.
why you should be afraid to do that? That should be something where your sensor should say, you know what, this is probably not a good idea. So we're going to face fear. Sometimes fear is there to protect us, and then other times fear stops us from going forward. You have to discern the difference. And you, in your soul, you know the difference. You know the difference between, okay, this is scary, and this is not, or this is not a good place to go. This is unsafe, versus, hey, I'm trying to expand myself. And every time I've expanded myself, I will always experience fear, everybody. So the first time I spoke in front of a live audience, the first time I got in front of a large crowd, the first time I wrote a book, the first time when I was in sales and I went out and made my first presentation, we're always going to have that nervous. So there's the difference between that kind of, hey, I'm a little anxious, I have a little anxiety, I haven't done this before, I'm a little nervous, versus fear. And sometimes that fear can be very paralyzing. So you've got to accept. See, one of the things with energy is acceptance and resistance. So if you feel nervous, or if you say, wow, I feel a little nervous, like there were times when I would say, wow, I feel a little nervous here. Instead of resisting it, accept it. Say, it's okay. I do feel that. That's fine. Let it pass through you. Don't resist it. Just say, yeah, I do feel that. And then it would just kind of go through me. And the minute I got out there and I got started, it would kind of dissipate. But the idea is you have to allow yourself to go into those situations, or you'll never expand, because you won't do anything. You'll just be afraid. And most people are very fearful of doing anything new or different. I've done a million different things. I think it's helped me. I've had a lot of different jobs. I lost my dad. I've gone through a lot. So I'm almost like, okay, whatever happens next can't be as bad as what's happened to me before. So, I've been bankrupt. I've been, so I think taking a few shots, and I think for me, a lot of it was earlier. I think it kind of toughens you up. It kind of makes you say, all right, I've been through things. I've been okay. I've come through it. I meet a lot of people who would say all of a sudden, they didn't have any issues in, let's say, their career. Yeah. And they're 45 years old, or they're 50 years old. And they said, oh my God, I lost my job. I got downsized, being in New York, especially 2008, when we had the recession, whatever, the mortgage bubble, and a lot of people lost their jobs, and people were calling me up and they were destroyed. They were saying, I never lost my job. I was never not working. I never had a problem. So they were not emotionally prepared for that. So it was very difficult, because their whole identity was in the job and their whole life was around that. And all of a sudden it was just taken away from them. And they were also in a position where what they did no longer existed. So they had to reinvent themselves. So, it's one of those things where if you haven't been through things, it's more difficult, which you want to understand. So those people, like, I could look at them and say, hey man, I got fired 50 times and I went bankrupt and I've been through everything, but that's my experience. For them, that was a real experience for them. And those were feelings that they had to work through, feeling fearful and feeling really also like they were letting their family down or feeling guilty. These were a lot of emotions that their souls needed to feel, which is why that happened to them.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah. Oh, I also I didn't lose my job. I decided to leave my job because I had a massive burnout. So
yeah,
it just made sense for me to do that. And everybody was like, why are you leaving without having another job to go into? It's like, you must be crazy. And I'm like, well, there's no point me taking my baggage from my previous job into my new job. That doesn't make any sense. I got to work through the issues that I had there.
Exactly.
And then when I'm done and ready, then I can go then. So
and you can move on. Right. Exactly.
But I'm like, I now know I can fall back on myself, and I know I can trust myself in any situation. So, because I can do something like that. So that was good. Good learning.
Toughened you up.
And you mentioned in one of your videos there how we can let go of the past and forgive. Can you explain that a little bit to the audience as well?
Yeah, so that's a big one, I think, for everybody, is you want to get to, ultimately, forgiveness is going to be the key for us to really go forward. And a lot of us are carrying a lot of pain from childhood or what happened to us growing up. And there are people that, I've worked with, and, believe me, I was one of them, dealing with the issues that I had. And you've got to go through a process to get to forgiveness. But one of the things I always talk to people about is you will be angry first. And you need to deal with those feelings and that anger, because that's a legitimate feeling that you have for a reason. So if you're angry at your mother or father, or if you have feelings toward them that are not good, you have to really process those feelings, because you can't get to forgiveness until you get through the anger. And I'll meet people and they'll say, well, that happened a long time ago and I'm over it. And I know they're not, because I can feel it. So I'll say, well, that's nice for you. I know you're saying that, but you're not, because you're still holding on to the anger. So if you have to be able to accept the fact that, yeah, I'm still angry about these things, and whatever I'm still angry about, I have to process. And it's important, because you'll never get to a space of forgiveness if you have a lot of anger. And you can't just make believe, oh, this happened a long time ago, I'm over it. Because if you have not dealt with the emotion, it will come back to haunt you one way or another. And that is critical. So you have to accept that you're angry, that you're upset, that these things happen to you. the key is you don't have to be angry at the person. Usually it's going to be parents, because for most of us, that's where most of this karma comes from. But the bottom line is to say, I need to accept that I'm angry, not necessarily because some people say I can't be angry at my mother or father, which I've heard a lot. I'll just say, and I'll say to them, you're really angry at how they made you feel. So focus on how did they make you feel and process the anger that way if it makes it easier. Some people say, no, I hate my mother, I hate my, they'll come right out and say it, but they're still not allowing themselves to deal with the anger, which really underneath the anger is the real pain. So the anger is not the feeling, the anger is the surface. They have to deal with what's underneath. That's where the real juicy stuff is sitting.
Okay, yeah. And I noticed something that you said there, that you can feel when someone is angry.
Yes.
Would you say you're an empath then, or?
I don't know. I don't call myself an empath, but I think I've been doing the work for a long time, and I've gotten very tuned into energy of myself, and I can pick up energy of other people.
Okay.
So I guess on some level, yes. But a lot of times people will say something and it'll just hit me, and I'll know it's not true. Now I don't know what that is. It's gotten better and better and better as I've done it more and more, and as I've cleared my own energy, it's gotten more clean. But I think we can all do that. I think the more we are tuned into ourselves, the more I can feel the other people around me, because I can feel their energy and I can feel what's going on within them. So I think that just naturally happens when you're more in touch yourself.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. The other question I had was, or a couple questions, I guess, is what is the number one thing, or a couple of things that we could learn from you right now about how to have more self-love in our lives?
Well, this to me is the key to life, right? We're really here to love ourselves. And I think the idea is, one of the things I learned about energy very early was that energy works on the premise of focus and expansion. So whatever you're focusing on is getting bigger. So that's why you see people who are sick all the time, that's what they're focusing on. You see people who can't lose weight, that's what they're focusing on. Yeah. So the idea is to say, I now have to train myself every single day. And I go through this, even now, I do it all the time. I do it pretty much every morning, where I sit quietly when I meditate and I focus on loving and accepting myself. And I also accept the fact that I'm human and I'm not perfect either, right? None of us are perfect. So I think that's another thing. A lot of people grew up, they had to be perfect, or they had to act a certain way. You can't do it. You can't, religion has done this to us as well. So the idea is you need to focus every day on loving yourself. And I don't mean it in an egoic way. It's more of just saying you have to love and appreciate who you are as a person, and understand that you're perfect for this lifetime. You're exactly perfect who you're supposed to be for this lifetime. And that is so powerful. And when you start doing it every single day, and you just love yourself and just say, I want to accept myself. I want to understand that I'm perfect. I'm not saying I'm great and you're not. It's not ego. It's just learning to do that and just appreciate who you are and just love and accept yourself. Yeah, by doing it every day, even for a few minutes, what you're doing is you're focusing now on self-love, on appreciating yourself, as opposed to what you did wrong or where you're failing or what's wrong with you. This is a big thing. Most people spend most of their time focusing on the negatives. And of course, they keep expanding that energy. So as much as it sounds very simple, people have a very difficult time with this, just sitting there and saying, yeah, I want to love myself for who I am. It creates so much anxiety sometimes for people. So I would suggest that just start slow every morning, take a minute and just, I always start with gratitude. And then I want to sit there and just say, I want to appreciate myself and love myself for who I am, and know that I'm perfect for my journey, and know that I'm here to do whatever I can do to help the world be a better place, and just focus there. And that starts to create a different feeling within yourself, because the more you accept yourself and you take the judgment off yourself, the bigger your energy and your expansion will become. So that becomes, but again, be aware of where you're focusing your attention throughout the day. That will tell you a lot.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I know, like, I also journal sometimes.
Yes.
But I know journaling is powerful, but when you keep losing your journal, it's not that powerful.
You gotta hold on to that journal. I journaled for many years. I still do it once in a while, not as much as I used to. And I think that was also a very good way to get your feelings going. So that's a good thing to do, even with your emotion, is journaling your feelings. That helps you get more in touch with how you feel.
And then you can also, like, when you're uh, writing, you can also say, ask yourself, where in my body am I holding tension
Yeah.
right now? Like if you find that you're grinding your teeth a lot, or your jaw or whatever, or you're holding your breath, maybe that's something that needs to be looked at, right?
Yeah. Or you're feeling it in your chest, or you're feeling it in your stomach, all valid.
Hmm. So when people start doing a bit more energy work and energy clearing, is there any type of symptoms that might come up for them that they should be aware of, or?
Yeah, so you have to remember when you start clearing energy, what you're really doing in a metaphysical way, what you're really doing is you're removing dense energy out of your body. It's really you're actually extracting dense energy is coming out of your body. So your physical body is recalibrating to the higher vibration that's now coming in. So every time you release negative energy, it's like you're elevating your frequency,
Mhm.
and your physical body has to go through a process of readjusting. Now, depending on the level of release, when you do big releases of energy, which I have done way back in the past when I really got into this work, you will feel it very intensely. So, for example, it could be headaches, could be you could get sick, you could get flu-like symptoms, you could have body aches. There's all these different things happen when you are cleansing energy out. So when wow, I had a very emotional experience, or even if I cleared a little energy, and the next day you say, wow, I feel like I have a cold, or my throat is bothering me, or I have a little bit of a headache. These are all symptoms of ascending, because what your body is doing is adjusting to the higher frequency. Body aches are very common as well. In the joints, that's a very common ascension symptom. I get a lot of stuff in the crown of my head when I'm clearing at this point, because I've done a lot of work. So a lot of my chakra work is taking place up here right now. So and you'll be able to feel it actually in different parts of your body when you release it. So those are all things that happen. When I show people how to clear energy, I always discuss that, because I say, if you feel really tired, or because a lot of times you release energy, you get very physical, you get very tired because it's emotional, or you feel like sometimes you can't sleep because your energy is all juiced up. So there's a lot of different things based on what you're doing, but definitely there are definitely symptoms that we experience. As long, and again, I'm not a doctor. If you feel like you're sick, certainly do that. But a lot of times when we do clear, we do feel a lot of these symptoms in our body.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I was just thinking, I was definitely all juiced up yesterday. I had lots of energy flowing through me. It was like really difficult to sleep. And right now I'm getting a little bit of a tinkle on top of my head. So for me, when I feel energy releasing, I feel like tingling, sometimes a warming sensation. What do you feel usually?
Yeah, I feel a lot of different things. A lot of times we're getting into very high vibration right now. So as we're moving into higher energy, I know my body's adjusting. So a lot of times at night I'll wake up and I'll feel like I'm vibrating. And it's almost like I know my body is absorbing all this high energy and I can't sleep. And it's just like, I feel like I'm like almost like plugged into an electric socket, and it'll last a little while, then it'll stop. But these are kind of things that I've been going through lately. I'm getting a lot of stuff, like I said, in my crown, where I'll feel like pressure on the top of my head. And I used to get that a lot worse. Now it's kind of diminished a little bit. A lot of times it could be ear ringing. That's another one we get a lot. All of a sudden, when you're getting into different frequencies, you hear your ears start ringing a lot. So these are all different kinds of things. I get all those things, but mostly now I've been getting it just in very high vibration in my meditation as well, where I'll actually feel pulsing within my body, where I'm feeling like all this energy pulsing through me as we're elevating ourselves. So it's a very exciting time. I know it seems like it's a big mess, but it's a very exciting time of change that we're going through.
Hmm. I know I a couple of years ago I read the earthing book, or the grounding or earthing movie there, and I ended up getting a grounding sheet, and then I'm like, now I sleep on a grounding sheet, so it helps me to get to sleep, so I don't have all those energies keeping me awake at night. So
Yeah, well, anything you can do, whether it's, like I said, meditating. Some people put water around their bed because the water is, whatever it is. We all have our little things that we do to try to help us get grounded in.
mhm. Is there any techniques or tools that you could give us for anybody who's new to meditation?
Yeah, so I'll give you a basic energy clearing to get started. That'll get you started into this. I have kind of different levels that I take people through, because I like to get them kind of start them off basic with a basic way to clear energy on a daily basis. I'll take you through the process of how to do it. So what I would suggest everybody do, you just mentioned you had an issue at work. Think about something that just happened recently. It could have been this today or yesterday, or something that's been coming up that's bothering you. And what you want to do is you want to sit down. You want to do this in a time when you know you will not be interrupted. You know you have time. You know you can sit quietly and put yourself in a place where you can just be totally clear. You don't have to worry about anything happening. And what I like you to do is just bring yourself into a nice meditative space. If you don't meditate or do that, just you could do it through some breathing. So you could just do inhales. You know, you can inhale like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale. That'll get you nice and calm, and keep counting the breaths. And then what you want to do is I want you to think about that incident that happened. You can close your eyes and visualize it. And you want to play it almost like a movie. Like you want to kind of, it's almost like you're watching it from almost like you're the director and you're watching the movie, and you're watching what's happening. But first you want to just kind of watch it through, and then I want you to rerun it again. But this time I want you to really tune in to what you were feeling, and allow yourself to really focus and say, wow, when that happened or that person said that to me, I was feeling X. So what you have to learn to do in this process is say, a lot of times the first feeling we'll have will not be the actual feeling. So you may say, I'm angry, right? Well, I feel angry. I was very upset. I was very angry, but that's not the feeling. What we have to learn to do is go underneath this. So for example, let's say you were at work, somebody said something to you, it got you upset, and you were upset by that, or you were angry or disturbed. A lot of people, sometimes they'll talk to their friends about it, or they'll try to validate it with their friends. You don't want to do that. So what you want to do is sit quietly and say to yourself, well, I was angry, but what was I really feeling at that moment? And you maybe say, well, I felt unappreciated. I felt disregarded. Whatever that feeling was that you really felt, you want to allow yourself to really say, oh, I need to feel that feeling. So now what we want to do is we want to anchor it and find out, where did that come from? So once you identify the feeling, let's say in this example, I felt unappreciated. Who made you feel like that as a kid? And that will generally go back to one of your parents. And people will say, oh yeah, my father never paid attention to me, never cared about anything I was doing. So the real pain, the anger in this example would be, I'm holding anger toward my father because he made me feel unappreciated, and I never resolved that feeling. So I've now recreated it again later in life because I never dealt with that feeling that I had as a kid. So the way to clear that one is to say, think about your father when you were a kid. And generally what happens in many instances is an event from your past will come up. And you'll remember, wow, I was just 7 years old and my father came in and just, I was doing, wanted to show him a drawing I had. He just walked past me and didn't pay attention. So that feeling of being unappreciated or not important comes up, and it allows you to then flush that emotion out. And there may be anger towards your father at first, but then there's that feeling of pain, which is the real underneath feeling. Wow, I was unimportant. I didn't even register for him to pay any attention to me. And then that'll trigger you to release it. You may cry, or you may just get a very big wave of emotion. That is the beginning of the process. So that's the beginning of starting to clear your energy. But you see the difference of, I have to learn to go down deeper and really identify what I'm feeling, and then link it back to when I was a child, and then feel the feeling, because now I'm getting to it at the core level. That's how you get it out.
And then another step that someone else mentioned to me too is, after you're done the whole process, thank that person for that trigger, for giving you that trigger, because now it's something that you could work on yourself.
Well, it's a nice idea, but you have to get to the place of that. It may take a while. I don't like to do that now. Not that I don't like to do that, but I don't like to do it as window dressing. It's almost like I don't want to get, until I get to forgiveness, I can't do that, because it's going to stop me from feeling the anger I need to feel. Because I know if that's the first time you did it, there's other feelings in there. I'll thank them at the end. I don't want to lose my momentum and just say, oh, it's okay. Because if I'm not completely clear with it, I don't want to go there yet. That's just me. I like to get it all out first, and then I can get to forgiveness, and then I can say thank you for everything. But at first, that's not what I've done with people, because I just don't feel like it's disingenuous to a degree, because they're really not there yet.
No, no, I was like, that was, I was thinking towards
Yeah,
the end, at the end,
yeah.
if they're
When you
ready
get to
for
the,
it.
that's the forgiveness stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know that is, it can be very difficult to do.
Yes,
Yes.
very much.
I might not be there at that time, so either.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Um, would you be able to explain to us a little bit about your free gift that you have for us?
Yeah, so I have a webinar. It's a new program that I'm working on that I just actually finished. I shouldn't say working on, but it's called Elevate Your Energy, Elevate Your Life. It's kind of an update of my Change Your Energy program. And I have a free webinar, which you can get instant access to. So if you go to freelifeschool.com, it's freelifeschool.com. It'll just put your email and name in there and just hit it. It'll immediately bring up the webinar for you. You'll be able to kind of see that, and it'll take you through some of these ideas and processes that I'm talking about with you today. And then when you get to the end, you can, I have a full program, and Cornelia asked me to give you a special deal. So I'm going to give you a 50%. There is a discount in there, but I'll give you an additional one to use. Use the code LOVE, and that'll give you the program at half price. So it'll take you to another site, which is elevateyourenergynow.com. You can see the whole program there. And if you want to get that at a half price discount just for this program, we'll do that. Just use the code LOVE and you'll be able to get that on the spot.
And we'll have all that information on the website as well, so you don't need to remember anything as well. So is there anything else that you'd want to let the audience know on the topic of authentic self-love and acceptance and love and forgiveness during uncertain
Well,
times?
I'll just tell you right now, we're moving into this place of very high energy where you are the people who are aligned with their true selves and their authentic selves and love themselves. This is going to be a very exciting time. So if you feel like you're not there or you need some work to do, work on getting there, because I will tell you right now, this is a time, be yourself, love who you are. And the key here is now, do things that are best for you, as long as you're not hurting somebody else. And a lot of us have gone through life and we've capitulated and we've done things that we don't want to do because we were supposed to be good or we were supposed to be whatever, and we sacrificed ourselves. This is not the way to go right now. The idea right now is to love yourself, do what's best for yourself, again, and focus on just enjoying and loving yourself. This is a very important time. Those of us who are authentic and in that space, this is going to be, the doors are going to open up for you. So if there's anything that you're still holding on to, or anything that you haven't let go of, or any negative feelings that you still, which we always have to deal with, work on flushing them out, because as we get to the end of 2021 into 2022, this energy is going to really take off. And the more you are in alignment with your true self, the better your life is going to be. So focus there every day and you'll see what happens.
Okay, awesome. That's good news. It's something to work on anyways.
Yes, yes.
I was going to say thank you so much for the interview today and for your generous gifts. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. And I want to also thank the audience for also watching and taking the time, and also going for the free gift. That it sounds amazing. So I really encourage you to go ahead on that, and even for the paid gift or the paid course. So thank you again.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate what you're doing and the work that you're doing. You're helping everybody heal. This is what we all need to be doing right now. All of us on this path, we want to work together to help everybody get where they have to go. So thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing this.
Okay, and I should also mention, if you have any comments or any questions, you can post on in the Authentic Self Love Facebook page, as well as email me and Joe, right?
Yes.
If you have any questions. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.